I came home early to surprise my wife, but someone else was already there. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just smiled and planned something worse. What I did next shocked everyone. I always believed betrayal was something that happened in other people's lives, the kind of stories you scroll past late at night, shaking your head, thinking, that could never be me. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't arrive with a warning. It slips quietly into your life, sits at your dinner table, smiles at you and waits. My name is Daniel Carter, and for 10 years, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Our house stood at the edge of a quiet suburban street, lined with maple trees that turned a deep amber every fall. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours. Every corner held memories, paint marks from when we redecorated together, a chipped mug she refused to throw away, the faint scent of her lavender perfume lingering in the bedroom even when she wasn't there. Her name was Emily. She had this laugh, soft at first, then uncontrollable, that used to make everything feel lighter. We met in college, built everything from scratch, supported each other through the messy, uncertain years. When I started my business, she stayed up late helping me plan, encouraging me when things almost fell apart. Or at least, that's what I thought. Things changed slowly, so slowly I didn't notice at first. Late nights at work became normal. Her phone was always face down. Conversations turned shorter, colder, like we were strangers sharing space instead of partners sharing a life. Just work stress, she would say, brushing it off with a tired smile. And I believed her, because love makes you blind in the most dangerous ways. That night started like any other. Rain tapped softly against the windows, the kind that made the world feel quieter than usual. I had come home early from a business trip, a surprise. I even stopped to pick up her favorite dessert, a small chocolate cheesecake from the bakery she loved. I remember thinking, she's going to be so happy. The house was dark when I walked in. Too dark. No lights. No sound. Emily! I called out, placing my keys on the table. Silence. I moved further inside, a strange unease creeping up my spine. That's when I noticed it, the faint glow coming from the upstairs bedroom. And then something else. A sound. Not loud. Not obvious. But unmistakable. Laughter. Her laughter. And a man's voice. For a second, my brain refused to process it. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. But my feet kept moving anyway. Each step up the stairs felt heavier than the last, like my body already knew what my mind was trying to deny. The closer I got, the clearer the voices became. Intimate, comfortable, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. I reached the bedroom door. It was slightly open, and in that moment, everything inside me froze. Because some part of me still hoped I was wrong, that there was some explanation, some misunderstanding. But hope is fragile, and reality doesn't care about hope. I pushed the door open. Time didn't just slow down, it shattered. There she was, Emily, not alone, wrapped in someone else's arms like she had once been in mine. The room felt smaller, suffocating. The air thick, impossible to breathe. My heart pounded, so violently it almost drowned out the sound of her voice until she saw me. And everything stopped. Her face drained of color. Daniel! My name sounded unfamiliar coming from her lips. The man turned, startled, scrambling to pull away. I didn't even recognize him at first. Just a stranger standing in the middle of my life, wearing my trust like it meant nothing. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. It was like the world was holding its breath. And then something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly, like a thread finally breaking after being pulled too tight for too long. You don't have to explain, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was calm. Too calm. That scared her more than if I had shouted. Daniel, please. It's not what you think. I almost laughed. Not what I think. I was standing in the proof. But the anger I expected to feel wasn't there. Not yet. Instead, there was something colder. Something sharper. A clarity I had never experienced before. I looked around the room, the same room where we had built dreams, whispered plans, promised forever. And suddenly it all felt fake, like a lie I had been living in for years. I placed the cheesecake on the dresser. Carefully, deliberately. I brought you this, I said quietly. She stared at it like it was something foreign, like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her anymore. Maybe she didn't. Because in that moment, I didn't recognize myself either. I turned and walked out. No shouting. No confrontation. No scene. Just silence. But behind that silence, something was already forming. Something she couldn't see. Something no one expected. And when it finally came to light, it wouldn't just break her. It would shock everyone. I didn't drive anywhere specific that night. The rain had turned heavier, blurring the streets into streaks of light and shadow. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in a steady rhythm, but they couldn't clear what I had just seen. Nothing could. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles pale, but my mind was disturbingly quiet. No shouting, no breakdown, no desperate urge to go back and demand answers. Just silence. And in that silence, something unfamiliar began to take shape. Control. I parked near an empty overlook just outside the city. It was a place Emily and I used to visit years ago, back when things were simple, before life became complicated, before love became whatever it was now. The city lights flickered in the distance, blurred through the rain. I stepped out of the car, letting the cold air hit my face, grounding me. That's when the question started. Not why she cheated. That question didn't matter anymore. The real question was, how long? Because betrayal like that, it doesn't happen overnight. It builds. It grows. It hides. And suddenly, every small detail I had ignored over the past year came rushing back like pieces of a puzzle, finally fitting together. The late nights, the sudden business trips, the way she would smile at her phone, but never at me. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. A life she had been living, right beside mine. I let out a slow breath. Most people, in that moment, would have gone back. They would have screamed, fought, demanded explanations. But I knew something they didn't. Anger makes you predictable. And I had no intention of being predictable. The next morning, I walked back into the house like nothing had happened. Emily was in the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the air, rich and bitter. It used to feel comforting. Now it just felt hollow. She looked up the second I entered. Her eyes were swollen, red. She hadn't slept. Good. Daniel, her voice trembled. I poured myself a cup of coffee, steady calm. Morning. That one word shattered whatever script she had prepared. I tried calling you, she said quickly. You didn't answer. I didn't know where you went. I needed some air. My tone was neutral, flat. It made her nervous. I can explain, she said, stepping closer. Please, just let me. I raised a hand slightly. Not aggressive. Just enough to stop her. Not now. 3 simple words. But they carried weight. Because I wasn't avoiding the conversation. I was delaying it. And she could feel it. The house felt different that day. Every sound echoed louder. Every movement felt forced. She followed me around like a shadow, trying to find the right moment, the right words, the right explanation that would somehow undo what I had seen. But there are some things that can't be undone. Over the next few days, I watched her. Not like a husband. Like an observer. I noticed everything. The way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The tension in her shoulders whenever I entered the room. The guilt and the fear. She was waiting for the explosion. The anger. The confrontation. But I gave her none of it. And that unsettled her more than anything else could have. On the 3rd day, I finally spoke. We were sitting in the living room, the silence between us thick and suffocating. Who is he? I asked. No emotion. No accusation. Just a question. She froze. It didn't mean anything, she said quickly. I looked at her. Really looked at her. His name. She swallowed hard. Ryan. A stranger's name. A man who had somehow found his way into my life, without my permission. How long? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Emily, I said quietly, don't lie to me again. Her eyes filled with tears. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. While I was building our future. She was building something else. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened. I almost smiled. Because that's what people say when they don't want to take responsibility. It just happened. Like it was an accident. Like betrayal isn't a series of choices. I want to fix this, she continued, desperation creeping into her voice. We can fix this. I'll end it. I swear. I leaned back, studying her. And for the first time since that night, I felt something. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. Calculation. You're right, I said slowly. Her eyes lit up with hope. A mistake. We will fix this. But the way I said it, the calm certainty in my voice, it wasn't comforting. It was terrifying. Because what she didn't understand yet was that I wasn't trying to save our marriage anymore. I was planning something else. Something bigger. Something that would make her regret not just the affair, but every lie that came with it. And the worst part, she would never see it coming. From the outside, everything looked normal again. That was the illusion I built, carefully, deliberately. I started coming home on time. We had dinner together. Sometimes I even asked her about her day, nodded at the right moments, played the role of a husband trying to move forward. And Emily, she clung to that version of reality like it was her only lifeline. She believed I was trying to fix us. That belief was my advantage. But behind that calm surface, I had already started digging. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about shouting or walking away. It's about understanding everything and then using it. The first step was Ryan. If he had been a stranger before, he wasn't anymore. I found him faster than I expected. People leave trails without realizing it. Social media, tagged photos, casual mentions. It didn't take long before a name turned into a face, and a face turned into a full picture. Ryan Mitchell, early 30s, marketing consultant, confident smile, the kind of man who knew exactly how to say the right things at the right time. But what interested me wasn't who he pretended to be. It was what he was hiding. I sat in my office late one evening, the glow of my laptop illuminating the dark room. Files open, tabs stacked, information slowly connecting. And then there it was, the crack in his perfect image. Ryan wasn't just involved with Emily. He had a fiancée. Her name was Sophie. The engagement photos were still up. Perfect smiles, perfect lighting, perfect lies. I stared at the screen for a long time, not out of shock, out of realization. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a network of it. And suddenly, this situation became bigger than I had imagined. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was hurting, but because my mind was working, planning, every move, every reaction, every possible outcome. Because if I was going to do this, I wasn't going to do it halfway. The next morning, Emily approached me cautiously. "You've been working late again," she said, watching me carefully. I shrugged slightly, just catching up on things. That wasn't a lie, just not the full truth. She hesitated, then stepped closer. I ended it. I looked at her. "With him." She nodded quickly. "Yes." I blocked him, deleted everything. "I told you I want to fix this." Her voice carried urgency, almost desperation. Like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I studied her face. The guilt was still there. But something else had crept in too. Fear of losing control. "That's good," I said simply. And again that calmness. It confused her. Because she still didn't understand. I already knew more than she thought. Far more. Days passed. And I kept watching. Not just her. Him too. Ryan didn't disappear like she claimed. People like him never do. They just get more careful. Hidden calls. New accounts. Indirect messages. But no one is perfect. And every small mistake he made, I collected. Screenshots. Records. Proof. Then came the turning point. One evening I followed her. Not closely. Not obviously. Just enough. She thought she was being careful. Choosing a different route. Checking her mirrors. But guilt makes people paranoid and predictable. She parked outside a quiet cafe on the edge of town. And a few minutes later, he walked in. Ryan. I stayed in the car, watching through the glass window as they sat across from each other. Their body language said everything words didn't need to. This wasn't over. Not even close. She leaned forward, speaking quickly, urgently. He reached for her hand. And she didn't pull away. That was the moment something inside me shifted completely. Whatever small part of me that still wondered if this could be repaired, died. Quietly. Finally. I didn't confront them. I didn't storm in. Because this was better. This was confirmation. The final piece. Instead, I pulled out my phone. And I took a picture. Then another. And another. Clear enough. Damning enough. Powerful enough. As I drove away, one thought echoed in my mind. Now it begins. Because this was no longer about catching them. That part was already done. This was about consequences. Carefully designed. Perfectly timed. Impossible to escape. And the first person who needed to know the truth wasn't me. It was Sophie, Ryan's fiancée. By the time I reached home, the plan was no longer just an idea. It was real. Set in motion. And once it started, there would be no going back. Emily greeted me at the door that night, forcing a soft smile. How was your day? I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I smiled back. It was productive. She didn't realize it yet, but everything around her was already starting to collapse. Revenge, when done right, doesn't rush. It unfolds. Slowly. Quietly. Inevitably. 2 days later, I sat across from Sophie. The cafe was different this time. Brighter. Busier. Filled with the sound of clinking cups and soft conversations. It was almost ironic how normal everything looked, considering what I was about to do. She arrived 5 minutes late. Nervous. Confused. Understandable. After all, getting a message from a stranger asking to meet about your fiancé never leads to anything good. Daniel, she asked cautiously, scanning my face. I nodded. Thanks for coming. She sat down, clutching her bag tightly. You said it was important. About Ryan. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I slid my phone across the table and let the truth speak for itself. At first, she didn't react. She just stared, processing, trying to find a way to make sense of what she was seeing. Then her expression changed. Confusion turned into disbelief. Disbelief into pain. And finally, understanding. No, she whispered. It wasn't denial. It was heartbreak. Raw. Unfiltered. I'm sorry, I said quietly. And for the first time in all of this, I meant it. Because she didn't deserve this. None of this was her fault. How long? She asked, her voice trembling. 6 months, I replied. The same answer I had been given. The same lie we had both been living in. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. Why are you telling me this? She asked, looking up at me. I met her gaze. Because you deserve the truth. And because the truth destroys illusions faster than anything else. She nodded slowly, absorbing it. Then she straightened her posture, something inside her shifting. You're not here just to tell me, are you? She said. Smart. Stronger than I expected. I leaned back slightly. No. Silence stretched between us. Heavy. Meaningful. What do you want? She asked. I didn't hesitate. I want them to face what they've done. Not through shouting. Not through chaos. But through exposure. Truth. Placed exactly where it hurts the most. Sophie looked down at the photos again. Her jaw tightened. They think they're being careful, she said quietly. They think no one knows. I gave a slight nod. Then let's change that. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break one person. It creates chains, reactions, consequences that ripple outward until everything connected starts to crack. The plan didn't take long, because the truth was already there. We just had to reveal it. At the right place. At the right time. In front of the right people. A week later, everything was ready. Emily had no idea. She moved through the house like someone trying to rebuild something that no longer existed. She cooked more often. Tried to talk more. Even laughed at things that weren't funny. Guilt has a way of making people overcompensate. But I didn't stop her. Because the higher she built that illusion, the harder it would fall. Daniel, she said one evening, her voice softer than usual. There's a dinner this weekend. Ryan's company is hosting an event. Couples are invited. I thought maybe we could go. Start fresh. The irony almost made me smile. Ryan, her ended affair, now inviting us into the same room. She really thought she had control over the situation. That sounds good, I said. And just like that, the final piece fell into place. The night of the event arrived. A luxury hotel ballroom, glowing chandeliers, polished floors reflecting soft golden light. The air carried the scent of expensive perfume and fresh flowers. Laughter echoed across the room, blending with the low hum of conversation. Everything looked perfect. Exactly the kind of place where people wear masks. Emily stood beside me, elegant, composed. Nervous. I could feel it in the way her hand tightened around her clutch. "Are you okay?" I asked. She forced a smile. "Yeah, just a little overwhelmed." I nodded. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "It'll be over soon." Across the room I saw him, Ryan, standing with a group of people, laughing like nothing in his world was broken. And next to him, Sophie, calm, still, watching. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and in that silent exchange, everything was understood. The night continued. Small talk, drinks, polite smiles, until the moment came. The host stepped up to the stage, microphone in hand. "Before we continue," he said, "we have a special presentation prepared for tonight." Right on time. The lights dimmed. The large screen behind him flickered to life. At first, it was just a slideshow, company achievements, smiling faces, success stories. Normal. Safe. Then it changed. The first photo appeared, Ryan and Emily, together. Too close. Too intimate. Too real to deny. The room fell silent. Confusion spread like a ripple. Then another photo. And another. Clearer. Undeniable. Whispers started. Then louder. Shock turning into realization. I turned slightly. Emily's face had gone completely pale. Her breath caught. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. But I didn't look at her. Across the room, Ryan stood frozen. His confident smile gone. Replaced with something else. Fear. And Sophie, she didn't move. She just watched, letting the truth do what it was meant to do. Because this wasn't chaos. This wasn't anger. This was exposure. Precise. Public. Final. The room erupted. Voices. Questions. Judgment. Everything they had tried to hide, now laid bare in front of everyone. And in the middle of it all, they had nowhere to run. I finally looked at Emily. Tears streamed down her face. Not quiet tears. Broken ones. "Why?" she whispered. I held her gaze, and for the first time since that night, I let her see it. Not anger. Not pain. Just truth. "Because now," I said calmly, "you understand what betrayal feels like." And just like that, everything collapsed. The loudest part of destruction isn't the moment everything breaks. It's what comes after. The silence. The ballroom that once buzzed with laughter was now filled with whispers. People didn't even try to hide it. Eyes followed Emily and Ryan like they were scenes from a scandal no one wanted to miss. But I wasn't looking at them anymore. I had already seen everything I needed to. Emily stood frozen beside me, her entire world collapsing in real time. Her carefully built lies, her secret life, her control over the narrative, gone in seconds. "Daniel, please," she said, her voice barely holding together. "We can talk about this, not here. Not here." That's what she cared about. The place. The audience. Not the betrayal itself. I took a slow breath. "No," I said quietly. "This is exactly where it needed to happen." Her eyes widened, like she was finally realizing something she should have understood long ago. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. Across the room, Ryan was dealing with his own consequences. Sophie stood in front of him now. Not emotional. Not broken. Just done. "I trusted you," she said, her voice steady but cold. Ryan tried to speak. "Sophie, I can explain." "No," she cut him off. "You've already explained enough. One sentence." And just like that, whatever they had ended. Security was called shortly after. Not because of violence, but because the tension had become too heavy, too public. The event was falling apart, just like the people at the center of it. And maybe that was the point. We left separately. Not as a couple. Not even as strangers. Just two people who once shared a life, and now shared nothing. The drive home was quiet. Emily sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her reflection faint against the glass. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had finally settled on her shoulders. "You didn't have to do it like that," she whispered. There it was. Not regret for what she did. Regret for how it ended. I kept my eyes on the road. "You're right," I said. She turned slightly, surprised. I didn't have to. A pause. But I chose to. The house felt different when we walked in. Not empty. Just finished. Like a story that had reached its final page. She stood in the living room, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold together something that couldn't be fixed. Was any of it real? She asked quietly. That question lingered in the air. Heavy. Complicated. I thought about it. About the years we spent together. The memories. The moments that once meant everything. And then I answered honestly. Yes, I said. Her eyes filled with tears again. Then why? Why did you do this to me? She asked. I finally looked at her. Not as my wife, but as someone I used to know. Because you did it first, I replied calmly. Silence followed. Not angry. Not loud. Just final. The divorce wasn't dramatic. No long battles. No desperate attempts to hold on. Because deep down we both knew. There was nothing left to fight for. Weeks turned into months. Life moved on the way it always does. Quietly, steadily, without asking permission. The house was sold. The memories packed away. And Emily, she became a chapter. Not my whole story. I heard things about her later. That she tried to reach out. That she struggled. That regret followed her longer than she expected. But I never responded. Not out of hatred, but because some doors, once closed, should stay that way. As for Ryan, his life unraveled faster than anyone expected. Reputation destroyed. Engagement gone. Trust completely broken. Because betrayal doesn't just cost you a relationship. It costs you everything built on it. And me. I didn't win. That's the funny thing about revenge. People think it brings satisfaction, closure, peace. But the truth is, it just brings clarity. I learned something through all of this. Love isn't proven by how long you stay. It's proven by how honest you are while you're there. And once honesty is gone, everything else is just an illusion waiting to fall apart. Sometimes, I still think about that night. The rain. The silence. The moment everything changed. But I don't feel anger anymore. Or pain. Just understanding. Because in the end, catching her cheating didn't destroy my life. It revealed the truth about it. And sometimes, that's the only revenge you really need.